UFC Fight NightGrasso vs Shevchenko 2 is coming up this weekend, and guys, we are going to be breaking down every single fight on the card. I cannot wait to talk about this card. This is a very, very underrated card, so I'm actually really excited for this one. We're going to talk about the whole card in just a second with timestamps down below if you'd like to skip to any part. We're going to talk about it like I just said in a second. Before we get into it, I do want to say hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels, and welcome back to another full card breakdown and prediction video. Guys, we are going to go from the bottom of the card to the top of the card. Again, timestamps are there if you'd like to skip to any particular fight. Let's get into the video right now. Josefine Knutsson versus Marnic Mann. So I'll start with Marnic Mann because if you guys don't know, I'm a big fan of the LFA, and this girl is coming out of LFA. You might remember her for those of you who really like the Contender Series. She had a loss to Bruna Brazil in the Contender Series, and this is really tough because she's one of those fighters who has like an okay skill set everywhere. She has a decent ground game. She has decent stand-up. Like, it's just like one of those fighters in the strawweight division where it's just like, like nothing really screams good about her, but it's just like, she's not like a poor striker or anything like that. You know what I mean? But I'm a little bit conflicted because she looked pretty good in LFA. She looked like she could hang and maybe even move up to the UFC, but then she took on Bruna Brazil. How much do you really want to take that into consideration because of what we've seen? A lot of people think Bruna Brazil, and myself included, has been exposed since then. But then again, on the Contender Series, she looked really good. So that's a question. I don't know what to think about that yet. Because outside of that, she's undefeated. She's looked like a decent fighter. I'm going to give her one more chance to show me that she is a very capable fighter in the UFC. She's taking on a pretty decent fighter, decent kickboxer in Josefine Knutsson. She's 6-0 so far. And this is also going to be her UFC debut. So far, she, of course, has looked very good in her career, but the competition level is just not there. That's something to take into consideration when you're talking about Marnic Mann, because the LFA fighters are quite good, and she wasted absolutely no time getting into the UFC here. So this girl is a very good kickboxer, although we don't know exactly how she's going to do with somebody with a little bit more of an all-round skill set with Marnic Mann. And it's not to say that she really lacks a ground game. It's just to say that her bread and butter is absolutely going to be kickboxing here. I am going to pick Marnic Mann in this fight. Not confident whatsoever. I'm going to pick her. I'm going to give her one more chance. She's shown some talent, man. A little bit. Like, it's just, I'm not overly convinced of Josefine Knutsson yet. I'm not convinced of Marnic Mann either, but this is one of those fights where we'll have to wait to see like how these two do in the UFC, a couple fights in at least. But I am going to pick Marnic Mann to get the win here. Moving on to the next fight, we have Charlie Campbell, and we finally have the return of Alex Reyes. Guys, if you don't know Alex Reyes, he has only had one fight in the UFC so far, and it has been about 5 years, 6 years since he fought Mike Perry. That was his only UFC fight. Mike Perry ended up finishing him. This dude showed to be a talent in the UFC coming in, but then we just haven't seen him. He's had so many unfortunate canceled bouts. Alex Reyes, though, while there was a lot of hype on him, he looked very good skill sets, both stand-up and submissions. Hey, we haven't seen him in 6 years now. That is absolutely wild. He's 36. He's completely out of his prime now. He's taken on another fighter in Charlie Campbell, who also has a decently like both these fighters are decently all-rounds. I would say Charlie Campbell has a little bit of an advantage on the ground if I had to make an assumption there, although it's going to be tough to see how Alex Reyes is going to come in. Charlie Campbell is another one of those fighters who he's been all over, but he didn't pass his Contender Series bout. He ended up getting knocked out there, but then he had another win just 2 months ago, and now he's getting his shot in the UFC. It's a little weird how the UFC's been doing that lately, but it's so tough to break down a fight when you have a guy that's been out for so long in Alex Reyes, because the only time we've seen him in the UFC at this level of competition, we saw him get knocked out, and that was 6 years ago. He is not going to be the same guy coming back. He was almost 30 years old at the time when that fight took place. He's 36 now. There's no way this dude's going to come. There's going to be ring rust. There's no way this dude is going to look good in this fight. I have a really hard time saying that, but he is a good fighter. I just got to go with Charlie Campbell, the more active fighter. He's not even in his prime, 28 years old. He's shown some promise, and while he did end up losing in the Contender Series, I don't mind his chances in this fight in particular at all. I just can't side with Alex Reyes, man. I can't side with him at all. Like, 6 years out, completely out of your prime. I'm going with Charlie Campbell in this fight, man. Moving on to the next bout, guys. I'm actually quite excited for this one. We have Tracy Cortez taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius. Now, Jasmine Jasudavicius has really won me over as a fighter. And I know she opened up as an underdog, and spoiler alert, I already placed a bet on this girl, to be honest with you. I am very high on this girl in the division. She's taken on Tracy Cortez. I'll start with her. been in the UFC for a little while now. A lot of people really, really like her just because of the way she looks, but this girl actually has a very nice skill set in the division. She's a very, very good fighter, okay? She's been 10-1. The UFC has looked so good so far. But the problem is, nothing about her wins really, like, she doesn't have the record yet. I don't love all of these fighters that she beat. While she did look good in these fights, I don't think she's taken on anybody like Jasmine yet. Jasmine has really, really won me over as of late. Really won me over. And I keep forgetting she's, I know she's Canadian, but I keep forgetting she's by St. Catharines. That's actually quite close to me, which is very interesting. But anyways, coming into the UFC, we've seen Jasmine at high points and low points, but after her recent loss against Natalia Silva, but then take a look at this loss, Natalia Silva has been destroying everybody. I would pick her against most fighters, or pretty much every fighter in the division. I'm really high on that girl, so I don't take anything away from that loss. But then she came back and had 2 wonderful wins, and this one especially against Miranda Maverick. She showed the pressure was great, the striking was great, the grappling defense was fantastic. She reversed every takedown and ended up having very, very accurate strikes. The only thing that worries me in this fight about Jasudavicius is her, like, she has such a good skill set, but her striking defense worries me. This girl does get hit, okay? She does get hit, and that worries me. But when she's fighting Tracy Cortez, I don't really see that being too much of a problem because she can explore so many other avenues to victory. I really, really like Jasudavicius in this matchup. I don't think Tracy Cortez is bad at all. I just really like the momentum she's on, and I'm really high on this girl, man. I got Jasmine to win this fight. I'm actually quite excited for this one. Moving on to the next fight, and guys, this should be a really fun fight. We have Edgar Cháirez taking on Daniel Lacerda. I'll start with Daniel Lacerda. So Daniel Lacerda, we've seen him in the UFC for a little while now, and of course, he's 11-5 with 4 of those losses coming as of recent. He's had a very, very rough time coming into the UFC. He's been losing and losing and losing. He hasn't looked very good. And besides CJ Vergara, those fights haven't necessarily, like, the fighters, the losses haven't exactly aged too well. You know what I mean? However, in these fights, it's not like he got absolutely destroyed. He's one of those fighters. This is why I really like watching Daniel Lacerda. He comes in, guns blazing. He's a very, very exciting fighter. I'm looking forward to this fight in particular. He comes in, guns blazing, wants to take your head off, but then he puts everything into that first round. If he doesn't get you out of there, he has a huge gas tank problem, and that's when fighters end up beating him. So it's really tough when you have a fighter like Daniel Lacerda here, because while he has lost 4 in a row, with the fight style that he has, he's always capable of winning. He's taken on Edgar Cháirez, who, another fighter who didn't get their win in the Contender Series, but got signed later on. He didn't win against Clayton Carpenter, there. But then he racked up 2 wins outside of the UFC, and then he had his debut again in the UFC against Tatsuro Taira. A lot of people are looking at this loss against Tatsuro Taira and really saying, like, okay, well, that's to Tatsuro Taira. Everybody's going to lose to Tatsuro Taira. And I've talked about this on the channel, guys, I have never been high on this guy yet. While Tatsuro Taira could be something special in the UFC, I'm not convinced that he is yet. And I didn't love Tatsuro Taira's performance in that fight. Edgar Cháirez did end up getting out-grappled. Okay, like, he didn't look too good in that fight. Something that really bothers me about both these fighters is they show a little bit of a fight IQ problem. I believe Daniel Lacerda shows that just because he wants to take your head off and he's, like, willing to sacrifice that. Edgar Cháirez is one of those guys that's like, he's like, I'm going to go in there against a really good grappler in Tatsuro Taira and pull guillotines. It's not the first time he's done that either, you know? There's just some decisions in there that is frustrating to watch, and it's like, why are you doing that, man? Why are you doing that? You know what I mean? So I find myself saying that sometimes about Edgar Cháirez, but I believe Daniel Lacerda is very aware of what he does, so there's a little bit of a fight IQ problem with both fighters. However, Edgar Cháirez is a decent fighter, and I don't believe he should be a minus 225 favorite, because when you have a guy like Daniel Lacerda, and again, he's gotten finished throughout the UFC, and he's been finished bad. He's one of those fighters that can come in and take your head off. Edgar Cháirez, I'm not overly convinced of either, but I gotta go with the more technical fighter and the guy who is shown to actually be able to go 3 rounds in Edgar Cháirez. It's going to be my pick, but I'm not counting out Daniel Lacerda in this fight. But give me Edgar Cháirez to win this fight. Moving on to the next fight, guys, I am very, very excited for this fight. We have Roman Kopylov taking on Josh Fremd. Now, Josh Fremd just got a win about a week ago. It was either last week or the week before. It was, yes, 1 week, 3 days ago against Jamie Pickett, which is absolutely insane. This dude is having a crazy turnaround. So this is something that I do want to say. It's a guy making a weight cut so quickly. That's always, always very worrying. What if that affects his chin? What if that affects his cardio, his health? You don't know. That's always something to take into consideration, right? But Josh Fremd We've seen him for a while now. We kind of know the gist with Josh Fremd. He's had a rocky road at the beginning of the UFC, but then he's racked up 2 really nice wins. He found a submission in one of his fights. However, he is primarily a striker. He'll want to get close with you, and he'll want to find your chin and knock you out. He's taking on Roman Kopylov, who also had a rough start to his UFC career, but since these 2 losses, man, this dude has looked better and more dangerous. And I'm officially on the Roman Kopylov train because this fight is going to be a striking match. It's got to be a striking match. I'd be very surprised if Josh Fremd ended up coming in here and grappling. However, while some people might point out Roman Kopylov, he definitely has a little bit of a hole in his ground game. He's been training in Dagestan, and I really like that for him. I think this dude is going to be a problem in the middleweight division. I really do. This guy has scary striking. He's accurate. His defense is on point, and he's powerful. It's scary when you have a guy who is so accurate and so powerful. If a fight's staying on the feet, which I believe this one will, Roman Kopylov will probably always win. I think he should be bigger than a -260 favorite. I'm very confident in this pick. For a guy who's cutting weight again, for a guy who we've seen finish before. We've seen him finish, and while he hasn't shown to be knocked out, we've seen him out of there. And I believe his chin is going to crack in this fight against Roman Kopylov. I'm officially on the train, man. I'm officially on the train. It's going to be a striking match, and Roman Kopylov is going to do whatever he wants. It's just a pleasure to watch this guy have his stand-up game. Moving on to the next fight, we have Lupita Godinez taking on Elise. Now, guys, I'm not going to lie to you, and I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say this. I don't know how else to get around it. It's the lower level of the talent in the strawweight division. Both fighters have shown holes in their games. Elise has a hole pretty much everywhere in the fight, and Lupita Godinez is a little bit sloppy while she does carry a little bit of power in her hands. Neither of these fighters have really looked good. Lupita Godinez has looked okay compared to the competition, but then she ended up losing to Angela Hill, and I was actually quite surprised about this loss. I don't know why, I just was. I thought Angela Hill would beat her, but regardless, moving on, she ended up getting 2 wins after that. The Emily Ducote one, she looked good, but then the Cynthia Calvillo one, everybody was screaming robbery. I don't remember exactly who I thought won that fight, but regardless, she is just unimpressive, to be honest with you. Same goes for Elise Reed. We've seen her for a long time now in the UFC. Had some highs, had some lows, and the losses haven't exactly aged well. The wins haven't aged well either. So it's one of those fights where I really don't know what to think. It's probably going to be a stand-up fight, while Lupita Godinez should go for the takedown and should go expose Elise Reed's lack of submission defense. I would imagine it's just going to be a sloppy kickboxing fight. And if I had to guess, Lupita Godinez will end up getting the better of this fight. I think it's nuts that she's a -450 favorite right now. I'm not high on either of these girls, but I got to go with Godinez in this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of Fernando Padilla taking on Kyle Nelson. Let me start with Kyle Nelson. Okay, guys, let me start with Kyle Nelson because this dude has had a little bit of a rocky road into the UFC. We've seen him have some wins. We've seen him have some losses. He hasn't exactly looked too great, but then in this last fight against Blake Bilder, I was so sure. I bet on it. I was so sure that he would lose to Blake Bilder, but who knew that Blake Bilder would get exposed, have no gas tank. But while Kyle Nelson did show that he had the heart to win this fight, he showed that he had the better skills, he still looked slow, and the performance, while it is a nice win coming off of losses, that win breaking his little loss streak that he had there did not impress me at all. He looked slow. He looked like the technique was there, but he was just a little bit better than Blake Bilder. We all just picked Blake Bilder. I don't know, I thought that dude was going to be something special, man. But regardless, I'm not overly impressed on Kyle Nelson. He's just an okay fighter. He's taken on a guy who I do not believe is just an okay fighter. He's taken on Fernando Padilla. While he only has had one fight in the UFC, if you take a look at anything this guy does, he is a very, very accurate striker, nice power, explores the ground game too. This dude, while he is primarily a striker, and he has very nice knockout power. This dude can fight everywhere. I really like this guy. I really like him. I like his accurate strikes. They're powerful. He really uses his reach, and that might be something to take into consideration in this fight. 76-inch reach taking on 71-inch reach. I really like Fernando Padilla in this fight. I think this fight, it will probably stay on the feet, and Fernando will keep him at bay, and Fernando is going to kickbox his face off. I really like the way he uses his hands. He knocked out Julian Erosa in his last fight in his UFC debut, and he looked really good doing it. Some people thought that it was a little bit of an early stoppage. It doesn't matter. This dude was going to end up finishing him anyways. I really like Fernando Padilla. I've been waiting to see him fight again. I really think this guy has the potential to be something special in the division. So I'm going to pick Fernando Padilla in this fight to beat Kyle Nelson. I'm going to pick him by knockout. If not by knockout, man, I believe he's going to school Kyle Nelson in this fight. But you never know. I said this. I thought Blake Builder was going to destroy Kyle Nelson too. Well, I know those are like two drastically different fighters, Blake Builder, Fernando Padilla. But it's just like Kyle Nelson rose up to the occasion last time. Maybe he could do it again. But the pick is going to be Fernando Padilla. Moving on to the next fight, we have Daniel Zellhuber taking on Christos Giagos. Now, I'll start with Daniel Zellhuber because I'm not 100% sure what to make of this guy yet. This guy has shown quite promise. He's a very, very good skill set, but at times he's been inactive. Other times he's been really good. I mean, inactive in the fight, not inactive like outside of the cage. There's times where he has been inactive, and there's times where he's looked like an absolute killer. So I don't know what to make of this guy yet. He had his first fight in the UFC, and it, like the Contender Series, if not counting that, he ended up having a loss against Trey Ogden, but then he bounced back and had a very nice win against Lando Venata. But even then, it's been one of those fights where he has been like, nothing impressed me in that fight. Nothing impressed me, but Lando Venata is a very underappreciated, and he's a very decent fighter. So I just don't know what to make of him, man. I don't know what to make of him yet. He has a very good skill set, nice power. He can even explore the ground game if he likes to. He's taking on Christos Giagos, which we've seen for a very long time in the UFC. We've seen him have some wins, we've seen him have some losses, but the problem is he's been shown to have a little bit, sometimes he has a little bit of a lack of gas tank, sometimes he's been submitted, sometimes he gets knocked out. There's just random holes in this guy's game, and he doesn't always put it together. He's 20-10, the record shows. He's coming off, while he is coming off of a very, very nice knockout win over Ricky Glenn, I'm not confident he's going to carry that momentum into his next fight. Daniel Zellhuber, I believe, should be the better skilled fighter, but Christos Giagos definitely has the better record. Not the better record. He definitely has the better experience against better guys. He's used to fighting people who are just as good, if not better, than Daniel Zellhuber, and that's why I'm like, I don't know what to think. I believe Daniel Zellhuber is the more skilled fighter. I do. But when these two match up, what's the game plan going to be? Is he going to come in? Is he going to use his reach? Is he going to stay away? Because if he uses his reach really nicely, which he can, but he doesn't always explore that, I'm just not too sure what to think about this one. I'm going to go with Daniel Zellhuber because, again, I think he is the better fighter. I don't know, man. I don't know. Christos Giagos has been getting better every single time we see him. He's been really putting in some work. It's evident. He improves as the time goes on. I'm just going to pick Daniel Zellhuber, man. I got to pick the younger guy. He's going to be in Mexico. That's closer to a 50-50 fight in my opinion, but I'm going to be picking Daniel Zellhuber. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Terrence Mitchell. Now, guys, the UFC really wants Raul Rosas Jr. to win. They really want him to win. I feel bad for Terrence Mitchell, man, because he showed some promise coming into the UFC, right? He looked like he was going to be okay, but then he came in and had a horrible loss to Cameron Simon. There's so much I could say about this, okay? First off, there's no shame in losing to Cameron Simon. I believe that guy could be something very special in the division, okay? He's shown, like, Terrence Mitchell has had an okay skill set coming in, like he's shown that he has a little bit of skill sets. He has a good, decent all-round game, okay? But he came in and just could not get it going against Cameron Simon, who is a striker, and he wasn't able to deal with the grappling and transitions that Cameron Simon showed. That's why it's tough. And he got really badly out-grappled against a striker, but then how much do you want to really take that into consideration? Because Cameron Simon, he is a very good fighter. A very good fighter. Here's the thing. We've just seen this guy get completely outworked on the ground. Completely. Raul Rosas Jr., that's his bread and butter. I think the UFC knows what they're doing here. They see a star potential in Raul Rosas Jr., and they want him to bounce back with a win. Raul Rosas Jr. has looked very good coming off the Contender Series and into the UFC. Everybody was getting all hyped up because he was the youngest fighter. I don't know if he still is. He probably still is. 18 years old. I'm not aware of any other fighter that's 18 years old. So, coming to the UFC, he has a lot of star potential. Everybody was really high on him, especially after his win against Jay Perrin. But even then, they're kind of buttering him up. Then he had that loss to Christian Rodriguez. We all know that Christian Rodriguez is a very good fighter, but I thought Raul Rosas Jr. was going to win because I thought they were doing another thing where the UFC saw something like they saw with Jay Perrin, where it's like, okay, we could put him up against this guy. Raul Rosas Jr. could take the win. That's definitely what they're doing with Terrence Mitchell here. And I got to say, I'm still not on the Raul Rosas Jr. train. Still not. I wasn't before then, and I'm still not. We don't know how he's going to bounce back after his first loss. This dude was insanely confident. Is he still going to be after this loss? It was his first loss. That's something that really important, and he did not look good in that last loss. Sometimes fighters come back better. Sometimes fighters are a shell of their former selves. So that's where I'm not too sure what to think of Raul Rosas Jr. However, the grappling skills are evident. I believe he is going to outwork Terrence Mitchell, just like we saw Terrence Mitchell in his last fight. Assuming the confidence level's there, assuming he's the same guy, I'm going to pick Raul Rosas Jr. to win this fight. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena. This is a fantastic fight, one that I've wanted to see for a very long time. Let's start with Jack Della Maddalena. Coming to the UFC, I'm very high on this guy. I thought he was going to be something special. The boxing, the power, the accuracy. He just looks so good. He is a great fighter, Jack Della Maddalena. However, he steamrolled his opponents. Looked better and better in every single fight, but this is the problem. This is the problem against Basil Hafez, and everybody was counting him out. There was almost a huge underdog win there, okay? He did not look good in this fight. Jack Della Maddalena is the first time we've seen him really taken into a dogfight, and I don't think he looked good. While he got the win, some people thought he lost. I personally thought he won, but it was a very close fight. I am off the Jack Della Maddalena train after that fight. I'm completely off. And I know there were some asterisks coming into that fight, but I didn't like that. So now we got to worry what happens if somebody really puts it to Jack Della Maddalena. Kevin Holland's going to do that. Kevin Holland's that guy who's going to put it to Jack Della Maddalena. And I know we've seen Kevin Holland exposed before, okay? We've seen it, especially against a striker like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Schooled him, okay? He's come back and gotten 2 wins against both Michael Chiesa and Santiago Ponzinibbio, but you can look at that and be like, okay, those fighters are really out of their prime. Kevin Holland, he's looked very good against them. Kevin Holland is one of those guys who I do believe, like I just said, can bring Jack Della Maddalena into a dogfight. He has a beautiful chin on him. He has a reach advantage, 81-73. Kevin Holland uses his reach insanely well. If you watch Jack Della Maddalena strike, he uses a lot of nice close-up hooks. He's a fantastic boxer. But guys, I believe Kevin Holland will use his reach, and I believe he'll put him into an uncomfortable place with Jack Della Maddalena, and Kevin Holland might be able to finish him. I'm picking Kevin Holland to win. Absolutely. Absolutely, I'm picking him to win. I'm just not. I'm completely off the Jack Della Maddalena train after this. If he wins this fight, if he overcomes adversity in this fight, then you know what? Maybe I can be back on the train. But I think Kevin Holland will have a chin. I think he'll use his reach. I think he's going to coast his way to a win. Possibly by knockout. Give me Kevin Holland. Now, guys, before we get into the main event, I just want to pause the video for a second. If you want to skip, timestamps are there, of course. But, guys, every single Friday, there's a brand new channel member option. You'll see the join right down below here. It's $5 a month, 5 Canadian, by the way, and whatever that translates to. So it's probably even less. If you want to access my official bets, my official plays, I'm going to be posting them in the community tab for all channel members every single Friday. I'm a very safe bettor. I make a little bit of a profit each week. It's nothing absolutely crazy. It's not like you're going to get this crazy underdog here. I'm very safe. I like to make a little bit of profit each week, so if you want to get access to my official plays, join the channel membership. You will be able to see that every single Friday. Moving on to the main event, we have the rematch between Alexa Grasso taking on Valentina Shevchenko. Now, the first time these two fought, I, like so many other people, were all over Valentina Shevchenko. I was like, okay, Alexa Grasso just has the boxing. Valentina's going to chop her up, do whatever she wants. But then you could argue that Valentina Shevchenko made one Chris Weidman type mistake, and that's what led to her demise. But Alexa Grasso was putting it to her in this fight. Valentina Shevchenko was winning the fight, okay? She looked like she was the better fighter, but Alexa Grasso showed that she has a dog in there. She came in, she stayed composed. She was losing, okay, before the finish, but the thing is, she ended up getting that finish. So, nothing to take away there. Alexa Grasso, she is on a very nice win streak, looking good in every single one of her bouts, and of course, looking good against Valentina Shevchenko, the greatest women's fighter of all time, besides maybe Weili Zhang, maybe. Valentina Shevchenko, though, we've seen her forever now. We all know what to think. Beautiful kickboxing, beautiful BJJ. This girl is good everywhere. One of the most dangerous fighters ever in the UFC women's division. However, here's the problem. She could be coming off a 2-loss skid. That's how a lot of people could be looking at this. Against Taila Santos. Everybody thought that she lost this fight. I actually thought, I remember thinking it was so close. I think I thought Valentina won this fight. I'd have to go back and watch it again. Regardless, a lot of the world were like, okay, absolute robbery. Taila Santos should have won this fight. But then she also had a loss to Alexa Grasso. It's evident that Valentina Shevchenko is beginning to slow down. I'm not saying she's out of her, well, she probably is out of her prime, but I'm not saying like she's oh, she's done. She's not the same fighter that she once was. She's just been slowing down, and that's been evident. That, along with her, she seems very happy living her life. We know she likes to travel. We know she likes to always like do all these other things. If you take a look at any of her interviews, it seems like she has like almost 1 foot out the door. I don't want to say 1 foot out the door because she's not there yet, but you can tell she's been content with life. That's one of the things. She's been so dominant, and a lot of people thought she just completely overlooked Elise Grasso. I don't think that's the case personally. She seems like the type of girl to take everybody seriously, not to make the Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes mistake. I don't think she's that type of fighter, so she's been in the game for so long now. She's going on 36 years old, and that's a big problem when you're taking on somebody in their prime against Elise Grasso. Valentina's the better fighter. She can use her kicks. She should be able to keep her at bay, chop up her legs. But Elise Grasso, the pressure's nice with the boxing, and of course, she ended up finding the submission last time. Guys, I'm going to go with Elise Grasso to win it again. I think the Valentina Shevchenko days are over. She's getting up there in age. She's only going to look slower as time progresses. Could she win this fight? Absolutely. But I really like Elise Grasso in the rematch, guys. I'm going to pick her. I'm going to pick her to coast her way to a decision in this fight. And with that main event prediction, guys, that brings an end to this video today. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for checking out all of my picks on the channel. Let me know what your picks are going to be in the comments section down below. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? I'd love to hear from your comments down below. Again, thank you so much for watching, everybody on the screen right now. If you'd like to continue watching the Clenbat channel, there'll be 2 videos on screen for you right now. Check them out. I will see you either there or in the next video, guys. Take care.